Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Thread, the podcast, bringing our content to you. I'm All It Is, and I'm here with my chums, Beware, Cap, Doc, and Savage. And today, we bring you episode 17, Fargo vs. Interstellar. Two powerhouse directors, leaving us film buffs wondering, do we love structured, witty drama comedies more than far-out special effect-driven action films? But tonight's battle isn't necessarily the Coen brothers versus Christopher Nolan, but that's what it could come down to, folks. The Coen brothers have a format that they follow that our Thread members love so much, while Christopher Nolan continues to expand and break barriers down in the new age of cinema. But before we discuss these films in detail to find out which is greater, I'd like to give a special shout out to tonight's sponsor, Fargo Season 4 on FX. Fargo has been a fantastic show since the first season, and this season is excellent as well. Season 4 is based in Kansas City in the 1950s that follows two crime syndicates as they fight for control of the city, featuring Jason Schwartzman and Chris Rock. And today, since we're reviewing the classic film Fargo, it was a pleasure to sponsor the Fargo TV series on FX. Today, as requested by the doc, we have some new and improved intro music with new sound clips produced by Beware to help us get through round one of this 64 movie battle bracket. Let's go.
I can't help it. I love you.
Forrest, you don't know what love is.
I'm not going to debate you, Jerry. Okay? I'm not going to sit here and debate.
You're a bald-faced liar. A fucking liar.
I mean, God forbid they should make a mistake and forget to steal.
I will not apologize for what I want.
Stop trying to control everything and just let go.
I drink it up. Don't bully me.
You like Huey Lewis on the news?
They're okay.
Either they don't know, don't show, or don't care about what's going on in the hood.
Hold on to your butts.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Thread podcast, bringing our content to you, featuring All It Is.
It's official, old buddy. Who has been.
Beware.
From then on, he was known as Benny the Jet Rodriguez.
The Doc.
You're the doc, Doc.
The Cap.
Oh, if you already know the answers to your questions, then why ask? Big fuck!
And myself, Savage.
I'm 6'5", 220, and there's two of them.
Homework's in. Let's begin. Now, we all know how much we love the Coen brothers here on our thread, but we also love Christopher Nolan very much as well. So I propose a question to our thread. Who is the greater director? The directing duo or the always evolving Christopher Nolan? Let's pass it to Savage.
Man, that's a hard one for me. I feel like Christopher Nolan is on such a streak of making like powerhouse movies. Like, I think he went from The Dark Knight to Inception. There's just this movie, Dunkirk. There's just a ton there. That being said, Coen brothers have been making movies, at least at a proficient level, for going on 30 years now. So it's kind of a hard. Obviously, they're completely different directors. I would assume that Christopher Nolan takes himself a lot more seriously than the Coen brothers probably do, just based on the content and kind of the quirkiness of some of the Coen brothers characters and some of the storylines that happen. Christopher Nolan is just such a badass director. I think for me, it would probably be Christopher Nolan just because he's on such a good streak right now. I know it's going against like movies like Fargo and The Big Lebowski and Oh Brother Where Art Thou and some like great movies. But I think for me, it's just going to be a little bit more Christopher Nolan. I think it's more of like that's like why you watch movies at the theater.
Yeah, good points with Savage there. Cap, what is your opinion on what would be the greatest director if that's what we were truly, trying to find out today, which it's not, but I'm very curious.
I think it's really tough to say who the better director is. I think they both have better qualities, better strength, different ways. Strengths for the Coen brothers, I think, is in the character building and the storytelling. I think that they're both like incredibly well read and like well versed in like the hero's journey and just all the writing tricks. That being said, they kind of do less or more with less in most if not all of their films. That being said, I mean, Christopher Nolan, like Savage said, this is total cinema that you can almost put your hands on it. Like in the theater, it's true experience. So as far as like putting a whole thing together, as far as like sound editing and all that shit to make it like spectacular on the screen, I mean, you're talking about a movie like Interstellar where you're going into a wormhole, and I didn't even see it in 3D, and I felt like total heartbeat anxiety, like I'm in that ship, and that shit blew my fucking mind. And then when he's going into like the black hole too, it's like you're having that experience with him, and that's like, I don't know, there's really something to be said. So I'm not gonna I don't want to choose. I don't know, man. It's a really tough question. I'll say the Coen brothers just because I like their movies more.
How about you, Beware?
It's a very tough question, like everyone else prior has said. I don't even think I'm going to give my answer, actually. I think I'm going to save it till the end because I feel like it kind of maybe is leading. But everyone's made great points. I think that the more I thought about both of these movies in comparison, Christopher Nolan's movies definitely evoke a sense of strong emotion, gut punch emotion, uncontrollable emotion, whether it's excitement or anxiety from, the Joker and Batman, or it's going through the wormhole, like Mike said. He definitely brings it out of you. He does it with big exclamation points, though. And the Coen brothers, they do it in the details, but also they do have big exclamation points in certain things. And like and kind of just to jump ahead, because why not? One of the best scenes in Fargo is where the duo, Steve Buscemi and his road dog, the more aggressive, non-speaking road dog, the road dog turns back around and goes and chases the kids that are following him. Like, that scene right there is not an underlying detail. I think it's one of the best scenes in the movie, and it had me on my seat. It made me cringe. It was that same gut punch reaction, and they didn't do it with huge special effects. You know what I'm saying? So like, I feel like it's not necessarily always a one-sided lean in terms of that sheer raw emotion that Christopher Nolan brings, because the Coen brothers definitely bring it, but there is also a lot more quirkiness to their movies, without a doubt. And I will also say, as Savage was talking about the track record of Christopher Nolan's hits over the last 10 years or so, I was considering the Coen brothers' recent string, and while I would say the last decade or so has been very favorable, with the exception of maybe Hail Caesar, the overall track record does have more holes in it than Christopher Nolan. There's probably 3 times as many movies in it too. So we'll see how that pans out in their respective trajectories. But ultimately, I'd say they both are excellent at their craft. They both bring the heat when necessary. And I think ultimately my vote will kind of be saved for maybe the end of the show here.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow like what Beware is doing and save my answer till the end. But that said, well, I mean, let's look at both of these and appreciate both of these groups. They're both not just directors, because your question you asked about director, but these are both directors, producers, and writers of their movies, and are the best in right now currently. Like, obviously there's a couple others that we have on our list, but like, to compare them directly, it's really tough, man, because they're hit makers. I liked how, I think Kat brought up, or maybe it was Sav, about like, if we break it down, they're different types of movies that they do. There's some similarities, but they're very different, and they're very good at doing different things. So the Coen brothers, as we mentioned already, is like they're very good at developing the characters and creating tricky situations that produce a lot of anxiety and are quirky, and there's irony. Irony is a character in like all their movies. They work that well. Most of their movies are these kind of dark humors, which when it comes to direction, like, it requires a pretty precise finger on the pulse of the beat of the humor of the intensity to keep that balance and to keep it. And I mean, I think that takes tremendous talent, and I think that's a great strength of theirs. And then when it comes to Christopher Nolan, I think
Can act it.
he's as I've been watching him in recent years, and let's look at his hits. But 2002, the year 2000, so 20 years ago, was Memento came out, and then he followed that up with Insomnia. Then he followed that up with Batman Begins and the whole Dark Knight trilogy. And then he has Prestige sprinkled in there between Batman Begins and Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And then between Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, he has Inception. And then he follows up Dark Knight Rises with Interstellar. And then he's got Dunkirk, and then Tenet, which I've heard is supposed to be another kind of action thriller. So, I mean, it is just like a boom, boom. But with respect to like the storylines of all these, this is where I think Christopher Nolan maybe outdoes. And again, this is maybe isn't directions because you asked best director, but the storylines, I think, in some of these ones that Christopher Nolan puts out are so deep, and their themes are so interwoven. And I feel like they're much more complex than maybe what the Coen brothers are trying to do. Maybe I'm not giving the Coen brothers enough credit, but I think if anything, that's where Christopher Nolan wins out, is the complexity and of these stories. And he does a really good job of developing characters and moving of that kind of character development and stuff. I think Coen brothers went over on that, but I think Christopher Nolan definitely with the story and how he kind of builds that action throughout, and I think is fantastic. And they do it in very different ways, so it's hard to compare them. But I think that as Beware kind of did, I think I'm going to save my actual vote till the end too.
I did want to say one thing about the fact that the two directors, if you were to make a Venn diagram of all the movies from Christopher Nolan and then all the movies from the Coen brothers, they would be completely different. There's no overlap except one movie that I think a movie that either director could have made, and that would be No Country for Old Men. That could totally be a Christopher Nolan movie. It wouldn't surprise me if you said right now, actually, the Coen brothers didn't direct that. It's one of those movies that I feel like it's such a good kind of taste of like the best of both of their talents as far as like is directing and writing.
I like that. I was gonna say, I wonder if like would become a thing where, we have like remixes in music where somebody will take a song that somebody does and kind of throw a different beat on it or throw a different verse on it. I wonder if that would actually become a thing where we have these timeless stories that is an amazing film that a director put out, and then if another group of directors or take it and try to spin off and create their own version so you can kind of get it through their lens or perspective. I think that'd be a really unique thing. Maybe that has been done before, but
Old Boy, Spike Lee, a great director of our time, took on the Japanese cult classic that we did earlier, and that was a fail.
Yeah, good call.
That was Spike Lee that did that?
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize that. That's crazy.
I did not know that. I wanted to say something about the Coen brothers. They were I listened to an interview with them, and they were just talking about how, like, especially when they were starting out in a movie like Fargo and they're sort of like working on a limited budget, they do like so much preparation. So like everything is like really, really planned out, and there's like not the way that they write is like there's not much going on as far as like improv. There's like nobody coming in, like the lines are pretty hard. And I think that that's interesting because I think that the way that they write, it's kind of like listening to like music. It's got like that tempo that I think is really, really just, it takes a lot of time to capture that on film. So that naturalness and like to believe that you're in this, like, another thing too is like this is a good example of like them telling stories about parts of our country that go overlooked and not looked in, and there aren't stories about those places, period. It's just strange places in America that like then
they do more with less.
Right. Storytelling. Better storytelling, but yeah.
They take just big overarching themes and drop you into these certain aesthetic settings. Like Big Lebowski and this movie are kind of similar in the fact that it's exactly to Mike's point, and that Cap's point, and that it's really unique settings a bowler in the middle of, LA, and an off the beaten path LA, middle of Fargo, but it's all about money. It's all about money grabs, both movies,
And like both movies are all it's all about equal characters who everybody wants something different, and depending on whether what they want is like moral and ethical, kind of determines how the outcome is for them. At the end of the movie, because. Well, I guess I can get into that later. But.
Well, no, what you're saying, Cap, is keeping the comparison. Let's talk about characters, because a director like Christopher Nolan is going to be able to bring in heavy hitters, the top A-listers, while the Coen brothers have their list of people they like to go with. They also like to pick actors that might not be as well known or smaller or maybe more independent and doing more artsy films. And they do the best with them. So that's another interesting thing to think of, breaking it down into different categories, is who does better with characters. And I would have to say myself, I think the Coen brothers are very great at knowing what they want and sticking to it in that theme that we love so much. And I'm going to just go ahead and talk about that real quick. And if we're going to talk about characters, I'm going to have to go to Fargo for my favorite character, and that would be Margie. She is fantastic. I love her so much. We've seen her in more Coen brothers films, and I really don't think there's any competitor for her unless it is from Fargo. That's just my opinion, and I have a lot more to say about her, but she was wonderful. And I want to see her so much more, and I wish I've seen her more. And I know she's in a lot of films, but I think she truly is one of the greatest actresses out there. And if I had to say who's better at casting, I would say the Coen brothers too. Does anybody want to touch on characters and maybe keep that same comparison going? Beware.
First of all, I like how Margie's character just kind of comes into the movie from the outside looking in. She's like kind of putting it together, and you're watching her put it together. So it gives you a unique point of view from everyone else in that movie. And she's also like just far enough. I think they do a good job of showing how Margie is smarter and like kind of a level above all the other people in Fargo. And like she knows it kind of like she wanted to be humored by Mike Yanagita or whatever his name is. I like how she checks him also. But she wanted to be humored by him because she doesn't get a lot of she doesn't get humored by life in Fargo, and you can tell, and she's 10 steps ahead of everybody else. And I just think they do a really good job of letting that subtlety be in there, because when she finds out that Mike Yamaguchi was just leading her on to kind of try to take advantage of her, she's disappointed. Like there was never really an opportunity, even though she was leading him on. And she's great. I just it's hard to pick anybody else, honestly. Even though William H. Macy's character is so like slimy, man, slimy. You really feel it when he's getting kind of questioned during the True Coat over pitch. You're a bald-faced liar, a fucking liar. Like that I felt like that guy when I was watching William H. Macy's character, and he's really great in this movie in terms of just pulling it off, just kind of being an asshole and just kind of rolling with it. When Scotty, Dad, is everything okay? And he just responds with, and this is after the father-in-law dies. Well, I'm just going to bed now. Like what a piece of shit. What a piece of shit, man. I guess I'll to change my answer. I'll go with William H. Macy. And I say that noting I like both of those characters better than any character in Interstellar.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that True Coat, you don't get it in the oxidation problem. It costs you a heck of a more than 500.
Same interview I was watching, that is inspired by something that actually happened to either Joel or Ethan Coen. I don't know which one it was. Having that experience with a salesperson at a car dealership, with the True Coat.
While we're talking about William H. Macy playing Jerry, do we ever know what he needs?
Dude, that was the question I was waiting. I'm so glad you said that, Doc.
What real estate, a real estate deal. It's a real estate deal.
But he wanted the real estate deal to get.
I think he was scamming. I think he was scamming.
He was scamming
cars
from
earlier.
both ends, right?
Yeah, I think there was.
Yeah.
I think they pointed to him scamming cars.
Okay.
And
it
then
was so much money though.
That's
He
the
needed
guy
money
that's
to
calling
cover
about
his
the fake
ass,
numbers.
right?
Right. The
I thought the guy called about the fake numbers because of the car that he gave to the dudes. I thought it was just specific to that, but maybe you're right. Maybe there's
I
a
agree with
larger
you
thing
that is the case, but I just assumed that he was kind of doing that more.
Wasn't it $800,000 though he was looking for? I don't remember the exact sum, but it's close to $1 million. It's like 800,000, which that would be a shitload of cars in the.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, now that you say that, I don't think that's.
I think it's the Coen brothers pulling one on us, man. What do we call that, Doc? Where you're supposed to look that the red herring in a way, you know, like kind of just we want to know so bad, but we never do. Hey, Doc, while we're talking about it, why don't you go ahead and talk about your favorite characters?
Well, I do want to talk a little bit more about Jerry too. He was in my running for top character. And one of the things that I read about him and in preparing for it, and this speaks to what Cap was saying earlier about the Coen brothers, is that, you know, when you watch his role, how much he stutters and how anxious he is, you think he's kind of ad-libbing it at stuff, and he was not. So the Coen brothers
classic
credit,
move.
They wrote all those stutters.
Just like Walter. Walter's not improv at all.
Yep. And so, I mean, that sells that character so much. And I'm always so anxious watching him, like, because, you know, he's just getting deeper and deeper and deeper in the shit. And he's terrible at lying. And
he's terrible at everything. Like,
Wade, it's Jerry. It's my wife. Wade, it's Jane. Wade, it's my wife. It's Jane. It's my wife, Jane.
So it's funny. That was actually the one part that he does say that he did. I won't say ad lib, but he asked if he could add that into the movie where he's practicing calling his wife's head. That's the one part he like suggested, the practice. So that's funny that you brought that up. Go ahead.
I had a
thought
of this earlier about Jerry's character and kind of how I was like, I just recently rewatched Fargo season 1 and how it had to have been intentional to cast Martin Freeman as Lester Nygaard. It seems like it's like an extension of Jerry Lundegaard, and I think that was such a smart move on their behalf to do it that way, to kind of like, okay, so if you're watching this, you've seen Fargo, and you're kind of like easing
they pay homage a lot.
Yeah, easing the viewer into like kind of a similar story with a similar character who just gets in way too deep. And the cool thing about that show is that like you get to go deeper, and I think that like, I don't know, I can almost appreciate the show better than the movie.
Shout out to tonight's sponsor, Fargo on FX. They just in the last episode 1 make a reference to Raising Arizona 2 when they're breaking out of jail. But hey, let's talk about Fargo the movie, and let's get back to Doc and his character and talking about Jerry a little bit more too, I imagine.
In talking, we kind of started off by talking about directors and what each of these are good at. And I think, you know, it makes sense that who we were just saying were the best director, writer of characters, like the characters are going to come from this movie. And so, as I mentioned, like I had Jerry, I had Marge, like I was ready to kind of, you know, speak on them. But we've kind of already talked about them, but also then my, you know, and maybe I'm trying to maybe get a 2 for 1, but is the dudes for hire that go to kill Jerry's wife. And I think you can look at them as one character in a sense of like, is it Gare? Is that how you say? Is it Gare and Jerry? Or no, not Jerry. But anyway, Steve Buscemi and the other guy, and just like their dynamic is ridiculous, and it's scary, and it's intimidating. You see, you know, where they're coming from. You between their interactions, you get to see how kind of ruthless they are, what their values are, and how like they, you know, that they don't really have many values, and they're all kind of for themselves, but you know, for some reason they're taming up, but they actually don't really know each other that well, and there's a lot of kind of secrets between them. And then you get the one that you know, I think the fact that he has only 13 lines of dialogue in the movie, and he only speaking one full sentence at a time. Whereas the
Carl and Gere, if we're saying it right, Gere is the nihilist from Big Lebowski, and Steve Buscemi would be Carl.
Whereas Carl, by comparison, has over 150 lines of dialogue, and this goes back to what we were talking about in Big Lebowski, where they always would say, you know, tell Steve Buscemi's character to shut up, because it was kind of a play off of Fargo, where he talked so much in that movie. And I don't know, I think that they really drive, they're the ones that are kind of like driving this underlying storyline, this kind of impending doom, or this impending thing that Jerry's starting to try to stop, and he can't, and then it's this bumblefuck of a kidnap scenario that kind of goes wrong, and and they're kind of in this background driving this like regality of the how crazy things can escalate when you start kind of playing these games, that I think Jerry gets way in over his head and is out, and doesn't understand, the consequences yet of what his behavior is anyways. And so kind of they provide you with the reality of this game that he's playing. And I don't know, I like that aspect of it. And I love, obviously, Steve Buscemi is, one of the greatest character actors of all time, and really nails it with this role. And then to have his counterpart be that kind of mute but cold, stoic but ruthless personality is scary.
So Doc got Carl and Gear for the double whammy. I like that. That's a good pick there, Doc. Let's go with Savage to his favorite character or characters. Savage.
Obviously, I mean, we talked about Fargo having, or at least the Coen brothers having some of the best characters and character actors in the bulk of their movies. Margie's the best, and Jerry Lundegaard's, he's terrible at everything, and he's it is a little bit of tension that you have when you're watching him on screen. That being said, though, my favorite character out of both movies is going to be Tars from Interstellar.
I love Tars.
There's no scene that he's in or it's in that I am not completely drawn to seeing his movements. And
he even has some good mannerisms, without, if that's even the right word for a robot.
Yeah.
Poses that are hilarious.
Yeah. And the fact that he is like, kind of looks like the monolith, like a walking version of the monolith from 2001 Space Odyssey, has that like kind of like interesting, somewhat, I don't know, like kind of a primitive looking robot. It's not humanoid by any means. I know that it was at one point they wanted it to be more humanoid before Christopher Nolan stepped in and switched it up to make it more of like this boxy figure. I like the idea that Tars looks so primitive and is walking on two legs, but when shit hits the fan, like when they're doing recon on the planet in the time slippage event, and they see the wave, they think it's mountains at first, how he kicks it up into gear, transforms an additional leg, and then is rolling and picking people up and carrying them back in just like the ultimate Swiss Army knife, and so cool with the personality traits where you can get like they were turning up and down.
What's your humor level at right now, Savage?
Right, yeah, exactly right. I mean, with him, it's going to be high. It's going to be at least an 8.
I'm going to need you to turn yours up all the way, please, Savage.
And yeah, it's great. And I just think that anytime you see Tars, I'm completely drawn to him. I've spent many a late night when this movie's been on like FX late at night, Googling eBay for like Tars figurines and like looking for like something cool. So we might have to come back to him during memorabilia. So we'll later.
Dibs. He's calling dibs.
If I can get a quick comment in about a couple comments about Tars, is I had written down like Tars MVP. Like I loved him and everything that he brought, not just to like the movie, but just like the whole dynamic, because he is that comedic relief, and he is I wrote facts with Tars, because he's the one that's providing all the data. And one thing that's kind of crazy is that the Tars and Case and those, they were actually for the most part practical puppets that had a puppeteer that was working in a kind of a green suit or whatever, rolling it around and stuff and making it work. Obviously the scene where he kicks it up into gear, like that's the CGI, but like up close it was actually practical kind of puppet. And I thought that was really, really cool. And it kind of makes it seem a little bit more organic, maybe a little more clunky and not as smooth, and so maybe a little more believable. But yeah, facts with TARS, man.
Love it. Hey, Cap, why don't you tell us what's your favorite character? Is it a robot or human?
Well, first of all, I love and sort of thought that Sav might go with TARS as his favorite character. So I love that pick for Sav. I think it's fitting. I guess for the sake of balance, I could choose any one character as far as like going back and rewatching Fargo for the first time in a long time, but I've seen that movie plenty of times and thinking about that. But I'll say, like I said, just to kind of balance it out, Cooper and Murph, the duo, they basically save the world, or they save the human race with what they did, and it's fucking cool. I think Matthew McConaughey's like, that was his year of like Dallas Buyers Club and True Detective and Interstellar, and he sort of redefined his career, while at the same time Jessica Chastain was like very much on the rise as like a leading role. I just think that the fact that like you've got this dad and daughter relationship where you've got this very dramatic thing where she thinks that he knew and just left them all to starve and choke on the dirt, basically.
Savage.
It ends up being such like a miraculous, like long shot of an ending that, it's almost
connected.
Unbelievable, but they make it believable. So I just feel like that relationship that they have across time and space is worth mentioning.
Ooh, touche. Love that. Unfortunately, Cooper didn't show much bod in that movie. He's in the spacesuit. We could have had a contender for best bod and some guy love, but it's just not a contender, unfortunately.
Anne Hathaway is also a pretty cool character.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What he lacked in bod, he made up for in his voice.
Brand.
Best voice. Watch out, Samuel. He'll give Samuel a run for his money. Maybe.
Okay, can I add one thing about characters real quick before we move on to scenes? I believe is Scotty, man. I fucking feel bad for Scotty. His parents.
Real quick, I was gonna say victim of the story, the whole story for sure.
Victim of the story, man. His dad's a fucking asshole, more selfish idiot. All this kid wants to do is play hockey, and now his mom's gonna be dead. Is dead. His grandpa's dead. Yep. Who was clearly an important figure in his life. They sat there and watched Golfers. and now he doesn't got anybody because his dad's locked up. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, clearly there's nobody else there. Like,
the Coen brothers are kind of morbid if you think about it. They really are. They make the best comedy out of some morbid stuff.
That's one of the things. They're the most. I'd say they're definitely. I mean, in comparison, like, they're super morbid, and like they definitely leave you feeling a certain type of way. And we'll get more into that.
Oh,
yeah,
there's got to be a lot going on in Fargo, North Dakota, if they're watching college hockey, which is it's almost worse than like college baseball. No one watches that. It's just funny. Like, I never would have thought that would be something that people would ever watch. It's just funny to kind of speaks to volumes.
I love that you brought that up, Beware. I literally had that note and was going to say it if it didn't come up as best character, or I didn't know how I was going to slide that in, but I'm so glad, because that is, you forget about him, and he was just he gets fucking screwed so bad. And the last thing I had was, and he doesn't get to go to hockey practice. So it's,
savage scene.
Seriously.
Hey, he's going to come up again in this podcast, I promise you. But what I want to move on to is scenes. And since I've talked about Margie already, she comes into Fargo at my favorite scene in the movie when they show up at the murder that has just happened on the freeway. And when just start going crazy about that time. But when she goes and investigates the murder and the whole highway situation, to like Beware's point in the beginning and a few others, how intelligent she is, super smart, ahead of her time, best around in a small town. And when she is saying, I don't agree 100% with you on your police work there, Lou.
Uh-huh. So I got the state looking for a Sierra with a tag starting DLR. They don't got no match yet. I'm not sure that I agree with you 100% on your police work there, Lou.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think that vehicle there probably had dealer plates.
Yeah, and just so polite and drinking their coffee and obviously cold and investigating this. And she's just might be one of the best cops in a movie if you want to just break it down like that. So, hey, that's my best scene, my favorite scene.
Cool.
Cap?
Jeez.
Yeah, I think that scene or that character almost kind of reminds me of Tommy Lee Jones's character in No Country.
Great call. Yep.
Character, or no, I'm sorry, scenes. From Fargo, I just say like a lot of the pretty much any scene where it's Steve Buscemi and how do you pronounce his name?
You've been saying Gear.
Gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All good.
Where they're kind of going back and forth and in the car. I love that.
The IDS building, the big glass one, tallest skyscraper in the Midwest after the Sears in Chicago or John Hancock building, whatever. You never been to Minneapolis?
Nope.
Would it kill you to say something?
I did.
No. It's the first thing you've said in the last 4 hours. That's
I guess what really
that's a
sticks out to
fountain
me,
of
I'll
conversation,
just
man.
get to what I'm thinking about is the two scenes I mentioned earlier. Special effects wise, you know, and as far as the storyline goes and kind of melding those two together, you're anticipating this wormhole that's built. And, you know, like I said, you're in that ship and you go on that ride and it's kind of like the anticipation of like falling into it while they're spinning. Seeing that in the theater and then just like gradually going into it was such a nerve-wracking, like I'm watching that and like my whole body's tensed up, and it's like very rare that a movie's gonna do that unless it's getting like a cheap jumpiness out of me. So that and like again like the him sort of stripping off the ship from his body and suit and going into the black hole and then following into this, you know, whatever this it's hard to say like he realizes that it's an evolved version of humans that has built this like
the Tesseract.
Is that what it's called?
The fourth dimension,
yes,
or whatever
exactly.
it was.
Where he goes out of time.
It was basically
he's communicating with Murph in her room, like through the bookcase.
Yeah, and they alluded to this earlier in the movie where they talked about like, imagine if time was something that was physical, like a crevice or a mountain, you know, and you could walk down into it. And that's basically what they created, was a physical representation of time, of a specific place in time, but then you could walk left and right and go, you know, forward, backward in time. And
Tars, can we confirm that?
Nothing's changed on that.
So yeah, those two scenes, like realizing what was going on and how they brought that movie back. And another thing I'd like to point out for me, and you guys can agree or disagree on this, this is another one of those like epic endings that kind of like blows you away, like the Shawshanks and the others that we mentioned. So yeah, those are my favorite scenes. Those are the ones that stick out most to me, seeing in a theater for the first time.
My favorite scenes from Interstellar are, I really like at the beginning when you kind of understand and I just quickly a few. The baseball scene where they're playing baseball and all of a sudden the guy just doesn't catch the ball because the dust storm's coming, and at that moment you realize, oh, like something's awry, like something is not cool here at all, and you realize more so that there's like a kind of a dystopian future angle to the movie. If you hadn't seen it, because I'd actually only seen it once prior to watching it recently. And so like you kind of forget like some of those nuances of it, or you don't know them as the first time viewer, and that really kind of punches you like, whoa, this is bad, and this is obviously going to be, you know, part of the end game here. So that was definitely a big one. Yeah, that definitely hit home. Obviously, I love when, just another quick one, when when Coop gives the other gentleman, I can't remember his name, the headphones, with the sounds with the water.
Sounds of Earth. Gotta love that.
That was just awesome. That was
that.
And then there's one, if it doesn't get mentioned, I'll bring it back. But and then in Fargo, I just want to mention my favorite scene by far, actually. Aside from, I think the best scene in the movie is when he doubles back and goes and kills the two kids. I think that's like one of the most haunting murder scenes in like any movie. It really feels realistic and scary as fuck. But my favorite scene is when Margie's interviewing Lundgaard and he just leaves and you see him back eye. It's one of the best scenes in any movie. It's so good.
He's fleeing the interview.
I'll pass it to Sam.
Yeah, like Beware was saying about like realistic and like realism in the movie. My favorite scene from both movies has to be the kidnapping scene from Fargo. It's when the rubber meets the road for the movie, because you're introduced to the movie via Jerry Lundegaard, who you just think is just some fucking idiot. And he's hiring a couple of bozos to get some job done. You almost think that they're going to run off with the money or the car or whatever. And when she's watching the local news like cooking segment in her back like living room, and you see Carl approach with a crowbar and a balaclava over his face, and she's just like stunned, and you can see him like looking in the window and trying to like figure out like, well, you know, what kind of gauge the situation. And then he gets out the crowbar and just starts smashing through the window, and like she books into the bathroom.
Shower scene's crazy though.
Yeah. They get into the bathroom. She takes the landline, which is like not a thing that like, obviously that's not relevant to today's society because we don't have landlines, but the landline from the hallway, she brings it into the bathroom. She starts calling 911, and they just pull it from the other side. The phone flies out of her hands and into the door. She goes into the bathroom or into the shower, and then he goes in there. Garrett's putting the ointment or whatever on his hand. And
the whole ointment thing kills me though.
Yeah.
Need ointment. He sees himself. He closes the mirror.
He's looking in the mirror, and she's right behind him, but she doesn't see her.
Hey, kind of No Country for Old Men-esque though. Hey, you got to clean up those wounds. They're realistic.
I think that the work that they did, the work that he did with finding the ointment in the cabinet. I specifically remember him just bashing everything away.
Through it.
Yes, just pushing stuff out and finding it like it was not like he knew exactly what the fuck he was looking for, and like just like rips it off with his teeth and gets ready, and just like all those movements are great. He's a fucking he's awesome.
Then it goes from that, and then so she bombards him with like in wrapped up in the shower curtain. And then when she tumbles down the stairs, that's when you know, like, oh shit, this has already gone like, you know, off the rails as it is. And it's like, well, how are they going to fix this situation now? She could be possibly dead. You don't know what's going on. She's obviously very injured. But man, what a fucking scene.
I mean, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say, I think mine is actually the kidnap scene. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say the wood chipper scene where Margie, approaches. She's kind of surveying the area because she got a hot tip that there's been some action going on. Previously, right before that, actually, there's like an interview with this guy. He's like, his name is Mr. Mora, and the cop's interviewing him, and he's saying, so he angrily says, "Oh, I get it. So you think I'm some kind of crazy jerk?" And he keeps using the word jerk. And the officer's like, "I understand." And then he calls me a jerk, and he says, "The last guy who thought he was a jerk is dead now. So I don't know. I don't say nothing." And he says, "What do you think about that?"
And I says, "Well, that don't sound like too good a deal for him then."
You got that right.
Yeah, he says, "Yeah, that guy's dead, and I don't mean of old age." And then he says, "Geez, I'm going crazy out there at the lake."
White
Bear Lake? Yeah, well, at Eklund and Swedland, that's closer to Moose Lake, so I made that assumption.
Oh, sure.
Anyway, he's drinking at the bar,
so I don't think a whole great deal
of it. But then Mrs. Mora, she heard about the homicides down here and thought I should call it in, so I called it in. End of story.
And so anyways, but like off that tip.
Bravo. Love that.
Dub in the actual.
Oh, man, I don't know. Maybe not.
So yeah, she's up there and then sees the car that kind of matches the description, you know, and so she approaches, and then when she hears a and you know, we have no idea what that is, and as you walk in, you see this grisly scene, and it's so stark in contrast because it's the white snow, and you just see these blood just red in the snow, and you're like, oh my God. And then you see him out there just kind of just working hard at something, and I think he gets the log and he's trying to jam something in there, and she calls, like, I think she says like freeze or put your hands up.
He's jamming a foot. You can see like a leg at the end of it's a foot.
Then he turns, and I can't remember, maybe you do see it then, but I thought like you see it when he kind of pulls away and you see this kind of leg sticking out, and you're like, oh my God. And so like that, and then the only time you see Margie, you know, then he throws the log at her to kind of like distract her, and then he starts to run off on the ice, and then she gets him in two.
Real quick on that, she shoots him in the leg, which I really liked, and I really like not only because that's what the cop should do, but like that is the case, but I really liked how she's pregnant and she still does that. You know what I mean? Like she's by herself and pregnant, and she's about to deal with the dude that was just putting a human being into a wood chipper, and yet he still has the decency to shoot him in the leg.
Beware.
But so like that's obviously like Fargo. Almost every scene is like just this classic. The timing, the pacing, the drama, the anxiety, the humor, great. But then Interstellar, man, like Interstellar more pulls on these just kind of emotional, human. I don't know, human emotions, and it's super gen. And I think also just being a dad now, and I think that like that really played a part into how some of these scenes hit a little bit harder.
Oh, yeah.
But the scene where he's saying goodbye to his daughter, and where he goes in, and you know he's torn, she's devastated. He's her hero, and and obviously it's kind of dire times, and she doesn't fit in, but she's got her dad there to help support her in this really vulnerable time for her, and but he recognizes this is something that he has to go do, and he's so torn, and I can't imagine being in his shoes, and he says to her, like, don't make me leave like this, and like I love you forever, I'm coming back. And that sequence is so touching, and behind it is this Hans Zimmer, which I know Sav will probably get into, but the music for this is so amazing, and it really is just so emotional, and really helps to sell this. But yeah, that whole sequence, and then he just drives off, she chases, and then it literally transitions right into the like blast off or launch sequence. It's
we blast off at 42 minutes. Beware and I discussed, do they take off too quick? Does the movie get started upon watching it the third or fourth time? I think it's not that quick. And
I agree. I agree.
But blast off's 42 minutes into the movie, which kind of crazy, but it's a 3-hour movie.
Can I just throw one quick one else on there? Is the scene when he's watching, to piggyback off Doc's kind of heartstrings note, is when he's watching the first footage after he's realized he's lost 20 odd years or whatever. That was
my favorite scene in Interstellar that I didn't get to mention. I'm just piggyback.
Maybe I didn't want to bring it up because I was sobbing. I don't know, but like, good God, man, that scene was rough and great, and it just really well done. And
going off of that too, I can't imagine. One, you've got 2 kids. One of them, you're hoping to see them, and you get to see, what was it, 20 years or. And so you're like, I get to just catch up on my, kids' lives. That's crazy. But like one's not talking to you, and then the other is going through some really tough times. And like you as a dad, I feel like you would want to be there for that, and like you missed out on that, and you probably feel that added extra guilt and emotionality related to this decision that he had to make. Yeah. That was obviously the hardest decision of his life, and it's just right. He's looking at it, and he's experiencing the remorse.
Tars just came in with the fact from Tars. It's 23 years is the exact fact, but that's also after the scene with my man, Forgive Me, that has aged 7 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And researched the equation, and he's
chilled out. He chilled out. Super chilled. Yeah. He got used to living in space.
Wow.
And the fact that one of his kids, one of Cooper's kids, goes from is it Timothy Chalamet to Casey Affleck?
Talk about that.
Badass actors playing the same guy.
We have to talk about Timothy. Tim, what you just said.
Yeah, like kind of a bit role.
Timothy Chalamet.
What he does is he does a Casey Affleck impersonation because he knows that Casey Affleck's going to be the next character. If you hear it, it's spot on. I have that note. Shout out to Tim.
I didn't catch that. That's great. You have to drop that in there.
Let me guess. Was your ghost?
I knocked it off my shelf. Keeps on knocking books off.
No such thing as a ghost, dumbass. Hey.
I looked it up. It's called a poltergeist.
Dad, tell her.
Ah, it's not very scientific, Murph.
I'm gonna keep squeezing. Can the scene where they land on the water planet?
It's the best.
It's one of the. If we don't bring it up, we're crazy because it's one of the craziest scenes of ever in any movie.
The middle of the movie or the third of the movie, so it's like it's super crazy scene that sets the tone for.
Let's talk about that music with the tick tock. Is that Savage? What do we got there?
We got Hans Zimmer. It's the only composer you could ever think of that's actually headlined Coachella. I mean, like that doesn't happen with normal composers from film.
That's
so
amazing. I didn't know
he kills it. He kills it. I mean, it's just he kills all of his movies.
Megan commented on the music for Interstellar as she wasn't even watching it. She was like, "The music is awesome."
It's built from the soul, man. It's really, really good. It's dense. It's got good themes. It's awesome.
So Christopher Nolan approached Hans Zimmer and said, I want you to make a unique score. And it said, it's time to reinvent how scores are done for movies. And he didn't give him a script. He didn't give him, so Hans Zimmer didn't know what this movie was about or anything. Christopher Nolan gave him like a 1 page of like notes, and it's kind of unknown what was written in there. So to then listen to what Hans Zimmer created, how emotion driven it is, and how unique it is. I want to know what direction he got from Christopher Nolan because it's phenomenal and it's stands out, and it's another, I keep saying this, it's another character in the movie, so to speak, but it really helps to drive home some of those scenes, man.
Yeah, in comparison, the soundtrack's definitely going to win what was greater. If we're going to quotables, I think a lot of the ones that are coming from Interstellar, which I'm going to go into right now, are kind of corny, but they're very good, and we love them. That's relativity, folks.
They were corny necessarily, as much as they were just so like, not. I don't mean to say this in a bad way, but like complex and long-winded. But inevitably they are because of the content. So like a lot of the content or a lot of the dialogue in Interstellar is like that. But there's definitely a few gems in there, and one of them is when Anne Hathaway's father, the doctor, he says they're watching. He's basically thinking that she's not going to be able to solve the problem. This is right before he passes, and he's like watching it, like kind of seeming like it's an impending doom situation, and he's watching them building the rocket ship or whatever, and he says every rivet they set could have been a bullet. We've done well here, and I just really like that. That's a deep thought right there on his
I got one from Tars. It's not possible, and then Cooper says, "No, it's necessary." We're gonna have some cliche ones in there, but I do love them. And to Beware's point,
this is actually a cool scene too, which we didn't talk about, but when they see that drone flying over and it kind of turns into that like chase scene, that plane, and they chase it down and through that cornfield. Anyway, so they get it. He kind of tames it, so to speak. Sorry about that. Had my elbow on the key.
Tars was printing out some facts for you.
But so anyways, he basically hacks the drone, brings it down, and Murph is asking like, why are you doing this? Da, da, da. And his quote is, he goes, this thing needs to learn how to adapt, Murph, just like the rest of us. And it's, kind of with the change of times, and like they're putting it to use because it's just been flying around, not really serving a purpose. And so to then change it to serve a different function, which is what they're kind of having to learn to do, which I thought was really poignant. And then the other one I'll say is where McConaughey's character Coop is with the professor, Hathaway's dad, who's almost in like every Christopher Nolan movie. I forget his name.
It's Michael Caine, right?
Michael Caine.
Michael Caine.
Thank you. Thank you. But where Coop goes, I got kids, professor, and he goes, get out there and save them. You know, it's like, yeah, you do, but like, here's your chance to, like, you're not going to save them here. Here's your chance to go be a hero and do something that's bigger and meaningful than kind of you and your kids, but also saves your kids too. And I thought that was that's obviously the turning point where he convinces them.
I forget who says it in Interstellar, but they're talking about I think is it Romilly? Is that the character, the guy that was aged all that time because he wanted to stay back? And I think that's his name. But he says something about where they're looking out the window, or not the window, but they're like kind of up against the wall in the spaceship, and he says millimeters of aluminum and then nothing, like talking about like there is millions of miles of nothingness, like and the only thing protecting us from that is like a couple, half an inch of aluminum.
Cap, do you got any quotables for us?
Where is Pancake's house?
I definitely have. We'll stop, get pancakes, and get late. All right.
And they do.
Yeah.
I love if I can.
He's a problem solver. Yeah.
We're not a bank, Jerry.
I love the Indians coming after Steve Buscemi, and he goes, "Hey, smoke a fucking peace pipe. Come on."
It's so stupid.
All right, we haven't said it yet for some reason. The date. I've always liked you. Oh, I've always liked you. Times, huh? I've always liked you so much. Times.
Oh, and then I saw you on the TV, and I remembered, I always liked you.
Well, I always liked you.
I always liked you so much.
You were such a super lady. And Margie, oh yeah. That's a stretch. What's our man's name there? We were sharing him in our thread today.
Mike Yamagita.
Thank you. Shout out to him. Folks, I'm going to move us on to memorabilia, and I'm being greedy because I have a very special item, and somebody else I want to bring up one more time, Forgotten Scotty. I want to take Scotty's accordion, man. And what a cool accordion that is. But also, if you catch that poster that's on his door.
That's on my list.
We have the Accordion King. Thank you. Awesome. Sorry, I snatched that one up. I think Savage was talking about a piece of memorabilia he might want to take home. So let's go to Savage.
Yeah, it's probably the most expensive piece of memorabilia. It's going to be Tars, obviously. There's just no way around it for me. I mean, it's like having like an au pair or a nanny.
Character and memorabilia.
It'd be perfect. Perfect.
Takes two categories.
Yeah.
I know. I don't get very good sleep very often. I don't get my bedroom doesn't have a door because the way my upstairs bungalow is. And so I can hear my kid yelling constantly in the mornings, and it just very rarely feels like I get a sound night's sleep. And those beds, I'd be lying if I said those beds in Interstellar where they sleep in and zip themselves up in like a sealed thing where it rips open.
I think it's called, what do they call it? The long nap? Or is that right?
I need that. I feel like I need that right now, actually.
Just put yourself into hibernation. See ya.
Yeah.
I love it. Just for certain times. Doc, what's your piece?
So my first one was the Accordion King poster, but I had a feeling somebody was going to grab it.
We need that in the studio, Doc.
I'll start looking on eBay. But the second thing, and I'm glad I get to say this, is so we haven't really talked about Margie's husband, Norm, and how gen of a dude this guy is.
I'll fix you some eggs. You got to eat breakfast.
So you got to eat. The backstory is that they both met in the police force, but they realized that like only one of them could work full time, something like that. So Norm realized that she was the better cop and the better detective, and so he became a painter. And at the end of the movie, after the climax, hits, we kind of get, and he's super gen. He's always making her food, always thinking of her, meeting her for lunch and stuff. But we find out that he won a competition for his Mallard painting, and it's gonna get on the 3-cent stamp.
The 3-cent stamp. Yes.
He's lamenting the fact that nobody uses a 3-cent, and Margie makes him feel better about it. But I want that 3-cent stamp with the Mallard painting.
Oh yeah. sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but just talking about how he is the Zodiac killer, just to kind of tie it back.
Oh yeah, you're right. It is the same guy.
Hey, while we're doing that, that's a great call. I didn't pick that up, but that's a great call. But while we're doing that, did everybody else pick out the American Beauty cameo and Interstellar?
Yeah. Ricky.
Yeah, I did not. Amy actually pointed that out. We were trying to figure it out. We're like, how do we know this guy?
Oh yeah, the next door neighbor. Right.
Cap, you got a piece of memorabilia for us?
Oh, I guess I'll take those eggs. I'll take those scrambled eggs. I'm never not in the mood for.
I thought you might be talking about the fertilized ones that they keep in the ship, for Plan B. That would be interesting. I don't know, Cap.
I'll take all those eggs too, but I'm probably just gonna eat them.
Cap takes the eggs. Oh, folks. We've kind of compared these movies and deciding in categories which one's greater. At least for myself, a lot of things Fargo took, but of course the things that Interstellar has greater is very substantial. Let's see when we check in with Doc, as he stands by with TARS, who was up for awards for these movies? Because this was a big one, I would imagine, for Coen Brothers. I don't know. I'm going to guess they won a award, and if Interstellar didn't win a few, I don't know what's going on. So let's go to the Doc with awards.
Yeah, man, lots to talk about here. So I'll start chronologically with Fargo, came out in 1996. And the 1997 Academy Awards had 7 nominations, including Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor, which was Macy, Best Director, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Lead Actress, Best Writing and Screenplay.
Wow.
They won 2, so 2 Oscars. They won for Best Lead Actress, so Frances McDormand.
Yes.
And then they won for Best Writing Screenplay, so the Coen Brothers won for that.
Excellent.
Interestingly, William H. Macy did not win for Best Supporting Actor. It went to, we'll try to guess, 1997.
Titanic.
No.
Who's the director?
What's his name? He did the guy who directed Almost Famous. What's his name? It's a movie
Cameron
about
Crowe.
Yeah, Cameron
Crowe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
He is Almost
Cameron Crowe
Famous.
directed movie, 1996-7. Big one.
Oh,
Sports.
Oh, Billy Madison, or not Billy Madison. What's the fucking? They build the videos made out of the pyramid.
Yes, the Jerry Maguire videos.
Show me the money, Jerry Maguire.
Oh my God!
Damn it!
Jr. won for Best Supporting Actor.
Hey,
that movie was huge. That was the biggest movie of the decade, probably.
Yeah.
I kind of like that trivia, guys. I feel like we could maybe go somewhere with that.
My God.
Foreshadowing.
So, which is kind of crazy though. The movie that won basically all the awards this year at the Academy Awards was a movie that I've never seen and haven't really. I looked it up. It's only got a 7.4 on IMDb. It's The English Patient. It was cleaning up.
I remember that being huge.
Yeah, that was a huge movie for sure. I definitely never saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just so interesting how things change and how certain
the Academy is so weird.
Yeah, it is. All right, so 7 nominations, 2 wins. The Interstellar 2015 Academy Awards, 5 nominations. Now listen to this. These are interesting categories. So music, Hans Zimmer, sound mixing, sound editing, production design, and visual effects. So that's all what their nominations were. No acting, no directing, which is a crime.
Acting for sure, but not Best Picture. What the fuck?
So, but they got 1 win for Best Visual Effects. They beat out Captain America: Winter Soldier, X-Men: Days of Future Past, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and Guardians of the Galaxy. Just had to plug some of those movies in there. But this year was actually crazy good year for movies. So 2015, I'm going to take you through this kind of killer's row. So maybe why it didn't get nominated for some of those others. So this was the Whiplash year with Whiplash, Boyhood, Birdman, Imitation Game, Theory of Everything, Grand Budapest Hotel.
That's a good year, man. Those are all awesome.
Foxcatcher, Gone Girl, Nightcrawler. So all these were in the
Jeez,
that's a good
heavy
year.
hitters. What 2015?
2015.
Man, take me back there, man.
Yeah,
take me back.
So although they had only 5 nominations, 1 win, it's, this one
wasn't Hell or High Water that year too?
I don't think it was that year actually.
It was maybe the following year.
It must have been. Yep. Because
Okay.
I looked through all the movies and I didn't see any note in there. So on IMDb, Interstellar has 8.6. Fargo has 8.1. The top rated movies of all time, Fargo is 176 and Interstellar is number 30. So that's just some
30.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Well, what Doc has done here is he's, IMDb is our reference scale. That is our universal movie reference scale, but we're here and we have 64 movies. We're trying to decide which one is the greatest. And tonight it's Fargo versus Interstellar, and we have to decide which one is greater. So I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. I think what Doc just showed us too with the awards is if you liked Fargo, then hopefully you just got to watch the Coen brothers through the rest of their career, like your favorite band, your favorite directors, and just enjoy everything they do, every little piece of it. And you got to become familiar with the theme they use throughout their films. You got to get familiar with what they do and how they switch off, and how they, like Doc was saying, some stuff is based off true stuff that happened to them. It's like you can dissect them, and they're truly one of the greatest ever. And as we went through this list today, I think the Coen brothers, for my list, took most of the wins as far as characters, scenes, and all this stuff, even memorabilia. But Interstellar, and I'm kind of answering my question from the intro, is what do we appreciate more in these days? Those themes we love so much, or sometimes like that new age of cinema, which really is just blowing us away, that's making Cap feel like he's actually going through a black hole. And to have stuff that you have to go back and watch it again, even though the ending has that Shawshank Redemption feel, you go back and you watch it again because you want to dissect more, and you know the ending, but you want to know more. Interstellar's one of the greatest films of all time. Fargo is one of the greatest films of all time, but I think Interstellar will last even longer because it was truly groundbreaking on all ends. And although it didn't win everything and the categories broke down, it won the most important thing. And it had a huge effect on me watching it through the lens of what is the greatest film. Don't want to hold you up, folks. My vote is for Interstellar. Cap?
I think that it's pretty rare for me to really get super excited to see a movie like Interstellar in the theater. Not one like it, but just I'm just saying it's pretty rare that a movie that I need to see in the theater happens, and Interstellar knocked my fucking socks off. And I can't say Fargo is a worse movie, but it just didn't have that kind of effect on me. And I think that I kind of base my judgment for these is how did I feel after the first time I watched it, not just this time. So yeah, I'm gonna say Interstellar as well.
Beware.
I echo everything that Cap just said verbatim. Interstellar.
Love it. Guy love, friend love. The Doc is in.
So one of my nighttime routines that I do that kind of helps me kind of wind down at night is I usually get on Reddit and browse it. And one of my favorite subreddits to follow is Ask Reddit. And I came across one the other week that kind of has stuck with me. And it was, I think they were asking nurses or people that worked in either nursing homes or worked with folks that were either on their deathbed or, kind of thing, what do people say that are nearing death that are their greatest regrets, or are the things that they kind of wish that they, had and if they could do over, and resoundingly it was time, but time with family and how important that was to them. And that was kind of really kind of hit home with that. And watching Interstellar, I almost brought this up when we were talking about characters, because I think you guys will buy this, but I think time is a character in Interstellar. And I didn't want to kind of give away the punchline earlier in the show, but time is a valuable resource. And in this movie where they're running low on resources and they're trying to, the resource that they really want is time, and they need more time to figure things out. They need more time to go back and do this. This movie is about evolution, adapting over time, about sacrifice and forgiveness. And we didn't bring this up or talk about this at all, but the poem that continues to kind of be repeated, the do not go gently into that good night, is about
Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end, no dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning they. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
Time, and is about running out of time, and it's about what do you do in those last bits of time. And whether it's in death or aging and grief, and it's that although death is inevitable, or this kind of coming to an end of time is inevitable, is to the speaker encourages them to fight back and against the ravages of time and kind of continue to give it your all, and this kind of keep fighting, keep surviving. And to me, that theme, and then also kind of juxtaposed with like time and how quickly time passes us by, but how time is something that when you're on your deathbed, you wish you had more of, and is the most valuable resource, and not just more of, but more with your family. And how this movie, this Coop had to make a decision to leave his family, and not just leave and go away for a couple of years, but literally when he goes away, it's exponential years, especially with some of the missions that he goes on. And so he's losing all this valuable time. And that's, especially I think now facing these kind of dire times that we're in right now, and being a father and having a family, it's kind of inspirational, and it's kind of helps, this movie, I felt this was the second time I'd seen it too. Saw it in the theater as well and was blown away by it. But this movie resonated with me, and to answer the question, like, I know that we talked about best director, and like obviously there's no comparison, but it's hard to compare like what he did and what he does with the story and these characters, and I think continues to do in his movies. I think Christopher Nolan, man, and it's unique. It's this kind of new storytelling that he's doing, and is fantastic. The sci-fi aspect, but also on reality. And so that's my vote. I'm not going to kind of play the other side. I do want to say though that when doing some research on Fargo, if you go back, you can watch the Siskel and Ebert review of Fargo, and they fucking loved Fargo. They are giddy talking about it, and I love watching them because they're, anyways.
Yeah.
But they loved Fargo. They named it the movie of the year. Like, they loved it. But Amy, sweet Amy, had a really good call after we watched Fargo. She goes, it was okay. She goes, I like the show way better. Like, the show is way more epic, and the characters are way better. And
I would agree with that. I feel like the movie's really short, by the way. It's only like an hour and a half long.
Yeah,
and it's like tell this quick story, and I really agree with that. I think that the first season especially is like fucking, like, they perfected it. Like what it could and should be, because it's like you see these characters really change in the show.
Carrying on a tradition of a great show. Go watch Fargo on FX right now. Rewatch all those seasons, but you don't have to start anywhere in particular, even though you will see it carries a certain trend. But even though Interstellar, rightfully so, is going on to the next round, I need to check in with Savage, because I want to hear Savage's vote.
Yeah, that was a great analysis, Doc. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Interstellar is one of the more, like, probably one of the most powerful movies I've ever seen, to be honest with you. I never would have thought Fargo would get swept against any movie, but it got swept against this movie. So
who does Interstellar see in the next round, Savage?
Let me take a look. I should have trained on that beforehand. I'm looking at it. It's upside down.
Yeah, you're foreshadowing.
It's really small.
Is that a red herring?
Okay. Interstellar is going to go up against the Mulligan movie, The Master. So Interstellar versus The Master, Paul Thomas Anderson versus Christopher Nolan. That's going to be a fuck fest.
Round two. We got some new clips in the intro, and we have Interstellar going to the next round two. But right now in front of me, folks, I have the hats. So let's go to
I like how you said it was going to be a fuck fest.
Indeed, with lots of guy love. Let's go to the hat song, folks.
It's a hat, it's a hat, it's a teddy, it's a hat.
Let's go do that. Let's go do that. Let's go do that. Let's go do that.
Take your hat off. Excuse me.
Let's go do that. Let's go do that. Let's go do that.
You hear the shuffling? Hear the shuffling.
It's too small.
I have one. Well, it's not because it's not small. This is the third generation. The hat has been tipped over a few times, folks. It is upside down. So whatever. And Tars, can you confirm it was upside down?
Hey, I think so. Part of what I'm gonna have for data for I'll have all the directors, I'll have the actors and movie stuff. I'm also gonna have how many times the thing came out upside down, how many times it came out.
Well, it's upside down, and my thumb is covering the two movies, and now I'm sliding my thumb off of it. Oh wow, this is interesting. Next week, folks, we have Mystic River versus Taxi Driver.
Oh, shit.
I've been doing my extra credit, folks. I've been reading adaptive screenplay books. I've read The Mystic River. I finished it. It was a fabulous book. It's a great movie. I know it's hard to watch.
Somebody get murdered.
That's for sure. And it's a crazy story. Taxi Driver, however, a Robert De Niro classic. We don't have many that stretch back to the 70s. We have a few, and they've been all great. Taxi Driver, I know. Beware.
Reminds me of the early days of the podcast when we were watching Deer Hunter.
Scorsese, one of my favorite movies. Love it.
And Robert's been in a lot. We do have a mulligan remaining. It's Doc. So speak now or forever hold your peace. If not, we're going to see these folks next week for Mystic River versus Taxi Driver.
I've really been thinking a lot about my mulligan because I realize it's the last one of the group. Really put a lot of time and thought into which movies are even I want to consider for making a mulligan, and also what movie do I want to replace one with. And so I'm recognizing that we're only halfway through our bracket, and I'm gonna hold on to it. I've got some fun ideas of how I want it to play out, and I'm kind of gonna let it happen maybe organically, but I'm excited for what the mulligan can become, and so I'm going to be more strategic and thoughtful about it, and we'll see what happens.
I'm telling you, somebody could send the Doc an email, couldn't they, Doc, at the number 4 R-Thread podcast?
The number 4 R-Thread podcast at gmail.com.
And if you give the Doc a recommendation, I wouldn't be surprised if he just used your email as a mulligan, because you can see that we're going after what's the greatest film, and you get in contact with our thread and we'll show you the whole bracket. Savage will send you over the current status of the bracket, and Doc will consider your vote, folks. I promise.
Absolutely. That's actually one of the aspects. So I want to give a shout out. We've got a couple listeners. We've got Amy's brother, Theron's been listening, and also Double D, Dave Dillon's been listening, both big fans of the podcast. Told them to shoot us an email if they had any ideas for potential mulligan movies. And so, that's something that's in play. And so, if you think you got a good idea and something that, now that you've listened to a couple episodes of movies that we like and think that it might fit on our thread, throw it out there.
Love that.
Ladies and gentlemen, next week, Mystic River versus Taxi Driver. We'll see you soon, folks. Hey, I want to hear that intro music one more time by Beware, because it's got the new sound clips in it. And
I can't help it. I love you.
Forrest, you don't know what love is.
I'm not going to debate you, Jerry. Okay? I'm not going to sit here and debate.
You're a bald-faced liar. A fucking liar.
I mean, God forbid they should make a mistake and forget to steal.
I will not apologize for what I want.
Stop trying to control everything and just let go.
I drink it up. Don't bully me.
You like Huey Lewis on the news?
They're okay. Either they don't know, don't show, or don't care about what's going on in the hood.
Hold on to your butts.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Thread podcast, bringing our content to you, featuring all it is.
It's official, old buddy. Who has been.
Beware.
From then on, he was known as Benny the Jet Rodriguez.
The Doc.
You're the doc, Doc.
The Cap.
Oh, if you already know the answers to your questions, then why ask? Big fuck.
And myself, Savage.
I'm 6'5", 220, and there's 2 of me.